Yep.
Send a letter.
Yeah.
One took the whole lane. Because I'm slow. Try to get around it. Need to be that. I'm gonna.
Yeah.
My people have waited just as long as
Did you get your thing?
What?
Hey. I brought, if you got a couple minutes after, if you, we could talk, me and Angie could talk with you about the park and,
Oh, the Price's Park.
yeah, and Sandy Circle, yeah. We'll just give you,
Good. All right.
just to send it an email.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, that's fine.
Can't FOIA it.
That's right.
There you
It's
go.
always a benefit.
Smart
You
guy.
guys will probably know.
Yeah, I know. I do that at work sometimes too. Like people start sending. We have this like
Yeah, 'cause
secure
you're
texting.
FOIA too.
Yeah, because we're the state. Like, yeah, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna call you.
I was texting Marty one day and he just called me.
Or somebody says something that. Oh, really?
We don't want to.
Oh, come
Going
on.
in and out.
Ooh, ooh.
Is it his first time?
No, he just forgot. I'm like, how
That's the worst part of the whole thing.
Is the prep. Is it still?
they,
But then I went to the hospital. I tell you, last time was great. Yeah.
As long as you have like the morning appointment, you don't have
Yeah.
to sit around. fall.
By then,
You're so like torn up.
You're grouchy.
Yeah.
You're,
I still have a couple of years for my
yeah,
first one.
well, that's a good thing.
Mm.
Nothing wrong with that. I've coached.
See, my
So you've
dad.
had a couple.
Maybe.
Oh yeah, they crank them out, man. Well, it's like when I was at New River, like I was like the liaison to the surgery center across the street, and it was like with like I watched him. I'm like, hey, maybe you should slow down.
Yeah.
It's a sensitive. Yeah.
I could live with a scar.
That's right.
Hello, we're here. I'm awake.
I can help you.
Look, a buddy of mine.
Oh, that's right, because they set it up outside.
Yeah.
Yeah. Notre Dame.
They're fixing this.
Oh well. Watching volleyball, but it was like just the indoor volleyball
Yeah.
yesterday.
Tense.
It
It's so
is.
fast.
I was like, this is boring. When's the beach? She's
If everybody's ready, we'll get started. Call the PSA meeting to order. We do have a quorum. Thank y'all for coming out. Start with public address. If anybody would like to come forward and speak, please state your name and address. You have 5 minutes.
I'm Bill Lewis. I live at 3931 Mountain Law Ridge, Blacksburg, and the folks behind me are from our subdivision, Brush Mountain West. And we're here today just to get an update, find out what's the status of the public water. That's it.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening. I'm Roger Burnett. I live at 1810 Brush Mountain Circle in Blacksburg, well, just outside of Blacksburg. I'm here simply to represent several names, issues, issues of water quality, water quantity, firefighting concerns. I'm here to hear the discussion and get back to the neighbors. My services. Thank you very much for listening to this agenda. I will comment. I asked what would you want me to say? And she said, no pressure. Routines that you all well aware of. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'm Casey Corbin, and I'm at 3950 Mountain Law Ridge. And I sent a letter to all talked to Mary this afternoon.
And I resent that.
there's some possibilities of work it out somehow. Maybe engineering, I talked to someone about a box and some ideas, maybe ways we could get it. If y'all are black to help us. Yeah, that's important. Then this is what we need to help us too. Thank you, I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Thank you very much for listening to each and every one of us. My name is Mike Dowdy. I live on 745 Rush Mountain Road, Blacksburg. We were here the last time. I guess I will just go ahead and go through another spiel. We've been up there for about 20-some years now. We have I'm actually on my second plate. We put in 2 or 3, I think 3 softeners, iron units. I just had Mr. Finn leave the other day. Iron unit put in roughly $5,000 for another iron unit softener. You're getting solid bags, around. So anyway, same spiel. Hopefully you still don't know this is going to help out. We just trying to get the best water that we can, just good water. So we can wash clothes, drink the water, we still can do this. And that's all. That's about all I have to say. Just going to have brush down, hopefully they will be amazed. We'll be fortunate. Good. So we want to thank you very much for listening to each and every one of us.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing no one, we'll close public address. We got a consent agenda.
There you go.
Don't have no consent agenda, do we?
Yes, we have the minutes.
Yep. Is there a motion to approve the consent?
So moved.
Second.
Is any discussion? Madam Secretary, call roll, please.
Mr. Fidzikowski,
Aye.
Mr. Grafsky,
Aye.
Ms. Biggs,
Aye.
Mr. King,
Aye.
4 ayes.
Thank you. Now,
And next is
now we'll go to old business. Brush Mountain proposed water line extension update. I'll ask Chuck if he would to give us a little update on that.
Since our last meeting, we met with the town of Blacksburg, and they sent us out a list of things that they would, some issues that they would have. First of all, there needs to be a preliminary engineering report, which would be the responsibility of the PSA, with a town-selected consultant at a cost of between $250,000 and $300,000. They're going to want to, what that report would do would point out any impacts to the town water system as far as volume, storage, pumping, and water quality. PSA would be responsible for all design and construction costs. System should be designed as a fully looped system, which would mean when we first started talking about this and had Hurt and Profit, our engineer, put together a report for us. One of the routes was to go up Brush Mountain Road. The other route would be to go through Laurel Ridge and come in from that direction. But what the town is asking for would be both of those systems combined at a cost of $12 million plus, just for the water systems. that's not including what would need to be done if any upgrades were needed to the town water system to support the connection. That does not include those costs. The other thing that, the town doesn't want any negative financial effects on the town water customers, taxpayers, and the service area and number of connections should be limited. I'm not sure what that means as far as, are they gonna tell us that, you can have water for this many connections, for this many people, and that's all you can get. So we have not, I think the next thing they would have done would have to take it to their council to, present it to them, and I don't think that's been done yet.
They're gonna wait until they get a formal request with the items that are listed before they take it to their council for consideration.
And that's pretty much what I have.
So that would mean we'd have to agree to pay $300,000 for the study.
Right.
Okay. Well, remember, Biggs, I'll let you.
Well, okay, let's look at the study part first. Where would that money come from? Are there any funds that we could get a hold of that could pay for a study? And why is it so expensive? And also, why is it that the town gets to choose a consultant?
The reason the town would choose the consultant is because it impacts their system, so it makes sense that they would be the entity that gets to choose who to use. I think that the firm that they would use is already familiar with their system.
Okay.
There are no grants that we're aware of. We have looked, but there are no grants that we're aware of that could help offset this cost of the study, because a lot of times the grants that are used for those purposes are income-based, and that area wouldn't qualify. So that's the only source of funds that we could identify, and we were not eligible for any of those. What was your third question?
I think you cover, like, what do we do? Like, okay, so we don't have that money in the PSA authority, and wouldn't it come from the PSA authority?
Yes. The county, as you recall, when we joined the water authority, the county can't pay any operating costs, which this would be considered a cost of the PSA. So the county couldn't fund that at all. As far as why is the cost so expensive, I don't know the answer to that. It just is what it is for that comprehensive study.
Okay, so the way I read this, this is the way, we're faced with a problem, a group of citizens that have brought to us over a period of time, and it concerns having in 2024 water that you're able to drink, water that you're able to use in your home. And these are county citizens. So I guess, it comes to health, fire. All those are safety and health issues. So I would like to find a way that we could move forward. And I just don't know how to go about getting that money. I've been looking into, like if we were able to get things going, there's special things that maybe we could have a special taxing district or something like that, looking at the VACO book that Marty helped write. But I don't know about how to get the money for the study.
Well, you know yourself, you and I both have tried to speak to our federal partners, and we just didn't get nowhere there. And the grants, I guess, from the federal government, we can apply for them next year. But our consultant says it's very rarely, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chuck, very rarely if a district like ours will receive any.
That's right. That's what he said.
But we have, and Mary, you have, I apologize, remember Biggs?
Yeah.
I apologize.
We put pressure on, yeah.
But, we have, and we haven't let this go. You and I both have been trying to figure out some way to help them. And I, sure the other board members too, I didn't mean to leave y'all out, I apologize for that. But it's just, like you said, one thing is, we're gonna have to figure out that $300,000.
Yeah, that's the part. It looks like Anthony's wants.
So at our, the last time we discussed this, right, we put out the idea of kind of zooming out a little bit, looking at the other parts of the county that also don't have water service. And, you know, I wonder if there's any opportunity there to identify other communities, parts of the county that might also, you know, might have to tie into parts of, whether it's Blacksburg, Christiansburg, you know, that we don't have, you know, current service with the PSA, things like that. And so then, is there any kind of economy of scale of doing a bigger study? You know, is it $250,000, $300,000 to look at this small part of the county versus if we look at a bigger part of the county, you know, can we get more bang for the buck? You know, yeah, maybe it's $500,000, but can you look at the whole county and not have to drop $250,000, $300,000 every time you want to look at a subset of the community?
Well, I know, if I remember last time that we discussed this, and I was reminded of it today, that we said if we're going to spend that kind of money, we need to look at the system as a whole. And that's what the majority of the board said at the last meeting.
Yeah, and it looks like part of this money, though, would be going to look at the impact on Blacksburg, right? That's what part of this study would be, so.
I think all of it would be for that, for the impact on Blacksburg. Don't you, Chuck?
Yes, it does. That's basically what they're looking for, is to make sure that whatever, if we decide to do anything, they want to make sure that nothing's going to impact the residents of the town.
Right.
So that means, do we have to add, if there has to be water storage, extra water storage built in the town, just so they can supply Brush Mountain West and Laurel Ridge, if this is done, then they're gonna want, that's gonna be part of the price too.
Right, additional pumping or
Additional
storage
pump-
capacity.
Additional pump station, additional storage capacity. Is the infrastructure gonna have to be upgraded just to be able to get that kind of water out there?
What was the total number of houses we were looking at?
130.
Reaching?
130, I think.
130.
I don't
So-
have that paper with me, but I think it's somewhere close to that.
Yeah.
131,
I don't want to throw out that four-letter word, but is a well system out of the question if the well was drilled in another location and then it was pumped to a tank?
Well, most what we've been hearing, though, and correct me if I'm wrong, is, you know, they're putting houses there and they're drilling wells.
Right.
But then when they do, they're going bad too.
That's why I'm saying if the well was drilled in an area that didn't have any issues, that may be a little bit closer than connecting to Blacksburg even. I don't know anything about them. That's why I rely on Chuck's expertise. But I think in a well system, usually it's just a handful of homes or maybe even up to 20, but not that number. And I don't know what it would take. I guess it would have to be a system like what Reiner just got off of.
We would also have to ask the Water Authority for special permission for that, because that agreement says that they're the only source of water for us.
Well, I would think that common sense would say that they would grant that.
I think they probably would, because they did for one well that we took over.
Yeah, and, my thought is that if that can be worked out, that might be a viable, not a solution, but by putting in a system like that, even if we can just keep people going with drinking water and, I don't see people watering their lawns from a system that small, but if we could just help them in some way, because even if, and I say if, Blacksburg was to agree, and if we had absolutely no problems connecting to them or no problems affecting their wells, and we put in this entire system, how long would that take?
Probably 2 years.
Yeah,
close
that's
to-
what I'm,
close
that's
to
what I'm
24.
thinking. So, I mean, these folks would be still in a bad situation for that long. Now, how long would a well system take? Probably about the same length of
You're gonna
time, but,
be pumping up the same water that's causing the problem with the iron.
no, not if you get it from a different location.
Well, that whole area is,
Well, how far away is the connection to Blacksburg?
Depending on the route you take, there's a couple different scenarios, like I said, Law Ridge and Brush Mountain Road, and you're looking at about anywhere from 32 to, or 30 to 32,000 feet of pipe, so in either direction you go,
So about 6 miles.
about 6 miles.
So you don't think if you drilled a well 3 miles away from where they're at, you would get good water? You don't think that would happen?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I don't know, it'd be.
I'm
Yeah.
just throwing it out there.
Yeah, you're
'cause
thinking outside the
it-
box.
It
That's
just
good.
seems to me we have two very, very large issues. One is getting connected to Blacksburg, which it won't be simple, we know that, and finding the money to put the system in.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
$12 million for a system is quite a bit.
But there are different ways to, and Marty, this is what I want to ask you about financing. Like when I was reading about these special districts and being able to take out some kind of loans with the state that can be repaid over 20 years, does that just, I mean, is that something an authority can do, or is that only the county can do?
I don't know. I'd have to check. I would think probably just the county, because the county only has the authority to tax, not the authority.
Yeah. So then, how does that leave us? Like, we couldn't do something like that, or?
No, I think the prohibition with the county is they cannot give money to the PSA
Right.
without getting, something in return. They just can't give them money. So what you're talking about wouldn't be that. They would just be setting up a taxing district. The other option is mandatory connections and connection fees that would help cover the cost as well. The problem is, how many people out there are willing to connect?
Yeah, that's unknown.
I mean, that's probably a survey you probably need to know. If you have 15 and there's 130, but if you have 120 out of 130, it's a different story. So that's another issue you might want to think about.
And the other thing is, like, when you're thinking about climate change and the wells going dry, and if there's I don't know where there'd be continuing development, but, and there's the fire issue too, Like, I want to do something. I want to do something to help these folks. And I think they deserve to be helped. They're our citizens, and they don't have good water. And they're not the only citizens in the county that don't have good water.
So if you set up a taxing district, then everyone in that area would pay a certain amount of additional taxes to cover that cost. So that would seem to me more reason to find out who's interested in such a connection. And then we could, I could talk to, attorneys that do that specialized work and just see what they think.
And the other issue is that some of the people that have moved in there don't know they're going to have a problem until they have it. And then, or over time when they have to keep replacing things. And how much does it cost to dig a well, and how much does it cost to replace all of these things all the time? But it just, people are bringing in their own drinking water in some cases. That's,
All right. Yeah.
yeah. So,
And you know, where we're at now though, and Chuck, correct me if I'm wrong, but PSA right now, even if we wanted to borrow $12 million to fix this, we couldn't do it. We don't have the resources to pay it back. And if we raised each person that we have now, each citizen that we have now, you're gonna raise them probably $25, $30 for 1,000 gallons of water. Is that correct?
It could be as much as that.
But
I mean, right now, PSA just, where we took on the other loans, we just don't have the resources to repay anymore. I mean, we got what, 3,300 customers?
About 35,
35.
3,500.
So what we're basically saying is then we don't have resources to even put a system in if we got the water.
Got the water.
If we got the water from Blacksburg, if a miracle happened, everything worked out, we don't have the resources to put a system in.
Well, that would all go back to how many, as Marty said, how many of them is willing to hook up? I mean, we do have authority to hook them up, but we'd have to consult with them and see how many of them would be willing to. But right now, the way it stands, and Chuck, Angie, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, right now, if we went out to borrow $12, $13 million to do this, we would get turned down because we don't have the resources to repay it.
And that $12 million, like I said, that's just an estimate on the system itself. That does not include anything that the consultant would come back and say, Blacksburg needs to have this done in order to support this system and not have any impact on their system.
So even if we did something like Steve is talking about, or we looked at bringing water from Giles, we still don't have the resources to put in a system. That's what we're saying, right?
Right. Now, how far is Giles water to Brush
It's over
Mountain?
the mountain.
I mean, to Brush Mountain, what's the closest line?
Newport has town water. Newport, which is like 2 miles, 2.5 miles, 2 miles. If you go out 460 at the top, turn left, Newport's down where that little store
Yeah.
is, before Mountain Lake, turn off. It's like 2 miles of us. They've got town water in Newport.
So what do we do? I mean, are we just gonna not do anything? Are we gonna try to do something? Or I don't know what to do about trying to find money for a study.
So, Newport's closer than the Blacksburg route, right?
Right.
Well, now, the totals that I gave you on the length of pipe, that's including
The loop.
the loop, that's everything.
Oh, okay.
And we know pretty much that that's gonna have to be, that's gonna be done. That's gonna, if they, I feel like if they don't come back with anything and say that they've got to do this to keep it, an impact of their system down, I think they're gonna want that loop. I mean, that's pretty much laid out in the email.
Yeah.
That's the only way, the way I read it, that's the only way they're going to even consider it is if we consider the loop so it's not a dead-end system.
We could supply that whole loop with a 2-inch connection?
No, it's not a 2-inch connection, it's an 8-inch connection.
Oh, okay.
That line that's currently in there now, that they've spoke about going up Brush Mountain, all that would go away. That would be replaced with an 8-inch line.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
a 2-inch line was not 2 or 4, whatever it is not gonna be enough to even fill the tank at the top of the mountain, let alone supply them with water and fire protection. You can't run fire protection off a 4-inch line.
Well, that 2-inch line, that's going to that mobile home estate, right?
Yes, it goes up there. And
That's a
as far as
private
it
line.
goes.
Okay.
Yeah, there's like 4 or 5 connections below that, yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's a private line. A private person put that line in. Like I said, we've been looking everywhere for some kind of solution.
So do we have any other ideas about what to do? I mean, it sounded like also I heard that, okay, we couldn't apply for any money for a grant until next year, and that we probably wouldn't get a grant to do that kind of study.
Normally, we don't see those grants in this part of according to our engineer, which is Hurt and Profit. And they do this pretty much on
Well, but yet we want to look at bringing water to the rest of the whole county, right? Oh, how would we even get a grant to look at that, like to do a study like that? I mean, it seems like we're sort of between a rock and a hard place here.
What-
I
know
mean,
that-
what do other folks do? I don't know.
I think a lot of times, which is what happened in the county, we put water where schools were, and then the development generally expanded in that way. It followed the utilities. So I think that's why we have throughout the county and other places too, areas that people don't have water, county water. They don't have, we've talked with the eastern part of the county doesn't have public water everywhere, so they have the fire suppression issues too throughout the county, not just in that portion. But I think that was the premise. It kind of drives development. So maybe a detailed study wouldn't be part of the comprehensive plan, but as the comprehensive plan is looked at, that's one of the considerations is where do we have those kind of amenities.
That's exactly what happened in Reiner, because I was on the PSA when that happened, and the PSA was actually being a developer. Sad to say, but they were. And then we got that straightened out. So no other suggestions about how we can go about doing anything?
The way our current debt works, I think all of you know for the PSA, is there's a coverage ratio. It's a different kind of criteria that the PSA has to follow as opposed to the county because they're revenue bonds. So you have to be able to show that you can provide revenue to cover the cost of those, like Supervisor King spoke about.
I can't.
So when the county doing a comprehensive plan right now, right?
Right.
Maybe they could just check in water supply.
I don't know if it will be detailed enough to see what areas we can easily expand the PSA system into, but maybe from a planning perspective, the areas that make sense for that kind of development.
Because I know it's mentioned to me up on Brush Mountain that people keep building up there knowing they having water problems.
Before we issue a building permit for any house in the county, people have to show that they have water and sewer or septic. So if they're not on our system, the health department has to approve their well and septic tank, if that's what they have, before we issue the permit.
And that's out of the county and PSA's hands.
It is completely
Health
out of the
Department.
county and PSA's, yes.
Well, I don't know. I don't have any solutions. I just want us to be able to address this in some manner. And it looks like we're not able to address it in any manner because we don't have any money. Is that what we're all thinking?
Well, I mean, like I said, if we went out to borrow excuse me, if we went out to borrow $12 million, they wouldn't loan it to us because we don't have it.
I get that. And what about, and there's no way to get money for this study?
I know the grant process is closed for the year. It won't be opened back up again until spring of next year.
Spring of next year?
Yep.
And why is it that we think that we couldn't get some money from that?
I guess just based on the history of the projects that's been going on here, they've never seen any funding come down.
Okay, so where does this grant money come from?
Is that for state grant money from DHCD? And I think those are the income-based grants. That's why this wouldn't be eligible for that.
This would be, I think there's one other place that they can apply to, but there's no guarantees that you get it from either one.
So again, back to the idea of zooming out and looking at the broader county, would that affect our eligibility in any way in terms of, income-based, things like that? If we're looking at other communities that, may not be as,
I think they would still base it on the community itself.
Right, I think they might kind of segment the study, and like if there were some low to moderate income houses in a certain area, they could kind of prorate the cost of the study for that.
yeah, because, Derek and I, Supervisor Kitts and I when we were out with the Long Shop Fire and Rescue, this, water quality was another, and access to county utilities was another issue that was raised.
Right.
And so, I don't know if that community might be eligible for something, but to help offset or defray some of these costs, depending on how much a more comprehensive study would be.
What about the Virginia Resource Authority, the Water Facilities Revolving Fund? None of those we can get money from for a study, or?
I don't think you could get money for a study because I think those are mostly loan programs, aren't they, Chuck?
Yep. Other one is because this is what we went through for the Joinder project.
The biggest thing when you go looking for grants and things, they look at the county as a whole. And that's what gets us. They look at a whole. I mean, they don't look at one section to another section. It all goes together.
So would it help in any way? Would it help the Brush Mountain folks if the whole county was looked at would that help to be able to secure any kind of money?
I don't think that would help us necessarily get a grant. Do you know how much operating cash you have right now?
Yeah. $3,191,027.
I think if you wanted to look at the whole system and make sure that the current system, the existing system is solid and no major upgrades need to be made to what the PSA already serves, and then also look at a comprehensive look at the whole entire county about where service could be expanded and that kind of thing. I don't know how much that kind of study would cost, but if we had a study like that, maybe that could come out of the operating cash. We would need to look at that more and make sure that that's a viable option. I think it's a little bit, it would be easier to justify that kind of expense coming from the PSA's cash balances if it covered the whole system than if it just covered this area that we're looking at.
I think it would still have to be two different studies because
It would still have to be two, but
Blacksburg is not concerned about getting water to
Right.
McCoy and Long Shop and all
That's
the other
right.
areas. So yeah, I think it would still be two different studies.
I think it would be hard to justify the cost of this study that's going to pay for Blacksburg information to come out of the funds that are in the PSA now.
Current customer.
Yeah, the current customers.
Yeah, but $3 million sound like a lot of money, but look what situation we had last year.
It's not a lot of money.
It would not take long to spend that.
Right. Right. It wouldn't take long to spend it. I say that with a lot of caution, that I don't think that's a great idea. I just thought we need to make sure everybody knows what that is, but I agree with you.
I mean, $3 million sounds like a whole lot of money, but when you're trying to
Oh,
run
it's
a
not.
water, when you try to run a water system,
If you have a
one
breakdown.
thing
Right.
can take all that.
So really, we don't have any money to do anything with. Even do a study of the whole county, because we wouldn't want to take that out of there. Right?
Right.
Is that what we're saying?
We need our friends from Washington to send us some money.
We have friends.
Mary does.
Yeah, I've been after some money.
We done asked him.
Well, I don't
So
know what do we,
if the county wanted to do its own study of where a good location to put water, we couldn't do it?
I think what the agreement says with the water authority is that the county would not supplement or subsidize the PSA anymore, funding.
And who does the finding of whether it's subsidized or if it's the county's intention to do it themselves?
I guess it'd
That-
be the intent, yeah, or the purpose, yeah.
Could we do a study on fire hydrants? Going up Brush Mountain? Or do a study on fire hydrants throughout the whole county?
Seems like you could do that.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's a
just-
public safety.
Yeah, it's a public safety thing.
well, meantime, what do we want to do for the folks out there and the folks that live there? Just tell them to go ahead like they're going, or do we want to try to keep this in front of us to see if there's anything we can do? I mean, what are we going to tell Blacksburg? Like, we can't do this? Or what are we going to do?
Yeah, that would not fit within that list of items if we did a study for fire hydrants.
Well, you could, because that's where we got to get our water from, Blacksburg, for the fire hydrants.
Okay, well, we'd have to change the letter that we wrote, or, I don't know, I think it's a good thought. I think anything to get it rolling. But Mary, when you asked for, if there anything we can do for them, I mean, there's nothing immediate that can be done other than to, I don't know, maybe rent a water tanker and leave it out there so that they could have some kind of potable water, but I don't know what else could be done.
Any ideas from you, Chuck, about any creative things you've seen other people do?
I don't think that water tanker deal would pass with the health department, but, I'd almost, at this point, there's so many unknowns. We don't know what the cost of this, I mean, this is an estimate on the study. We don't know that. We don't know the exact cost. I don't know if at this point we should just reach out to the town's consultant and say, look, this is what we're looking at. Could you give us a number and say, this was what it would cost to evaluate the town system and see what the impacts would be if Brush Mountain and Laurel Ridge were to get water?
I mean, get a more
Get a more
accurate estimate of the.
on the.
From
I mean,
their
that's-
from their in-house engineers?
I think that, I mean, if CHA, that's the consultant that the town uses, if they're gonna be the ones that do the study, then I think probably should reach out to them and say, hey, we've got to pay for it, so we ought to be able to find out how much it's gonna cost. And get a better idea of what the cost is before we say there's absolutely no way.
I think we could ask Blacksburg to help us with that, getting that estimate. Blacksburg's where we got the original estimate, right, from the town staff.
And I still don't know that if we do the study and we find out all the unknowns and figure out what it's gonna take to get that system up there, can we still do it? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
That's
not
fair.
looking,
That's
it's not
fair.
looking like we can at this point, but again, there's so many unknowns. That's what's so bad about going into something like this, because you're not hooking on to something that you own, like the last 3 or 4 that we've done. We've hooked on to water lines that we know were there and we could hook to, but there's just too many unknowns with this project.
And Blacksburg has the water lines.
And they have the water line and the water to supply for that water line, but.
Well, how do y'all feel about trying to get an estimate, more of a realistic estimate? I mean, is that something?
Yeah, if the Blacksburg would be willing to do that, that would be a help, but we still have the other issues that we have to overcome, and that's the minimum of 12 million.
And see, at 12 million, then you gotta figure out what does Blacksburg want us to do to their system to,
Well, I was hoping that would come out from their engineers if they just,
Well, that's part of that's part of the study. They're gonna see, they wanna see if, and I think she sent that out to you, to all of y'all, the email that came back from the town.
Yeah,
And, that's some of the, items that they wanted addressed. What's gonna be the impact?
yeah, the impact on the town water system, volume, storage, pumping, and water quality should be evaluated and not negatively impacted, is what it says.
Yeah.
And it also has the thing about the system should be designed as a fully looped system.
Yeah. And the other one that's in there, that to me has the most impact, I would say, is number 7, where it says the service area and the number of connections should be limited.
We don't know what that really means, right?
That really means I think, they're going to say, okay, you can have this system, but you're going to get the loop that goes through Law Ridge and Brush Mountain West and ties in at the top at the water tank, but you're not going to be able to expand beyond that.
what about expanding within it?
But I
Think that would be limited?
If I'm right, you folks live up there, there's a lot of that's in between you and Law Ridge that's not developed. I mean, it's not, you couldn't develop it just because of terrain. So
that's right,
you're not really, there's nothing for you to go within and pick up any, that's the other side of this.
Okay.
Your customer base is gonna be so small.
And Mary, I think it's customary in agreements like this between localities that they set a number. And that's probably what they're talking about.
That is.
So it's like if the number is the whole development of where they live, then it'd most likely be that. And if you wanted to expand past that, they're gonna want to have a say in it. But it's a normal provision usually.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay,
then the biggest thing is, and I hate to sound negative, but even if they come back and they say, well, the study's gonna cost you $100,000, and it comes back, where are we gonna get that $12 million at?
well, then that's when I think we should try to look at some of these things in this book about districts and stuff.
Yeah, but do you
So
think,
that people in the actual place actually end up paying for it
yeah, but
over time.
Could you imagine what you would have to tax them up on that mountain
Well,
for
you have to
$12
do it-
million?
You have to do it over time, is what I read. I don't know. Marty's the one that wrote things in this book, so I don't know.
I mean, it would be over a period of time. I'm not sure what that period would be, 20 years maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I read someplace that you could. do
Life
it
of the
for 20
system,
years.
yeah.
But you think about it, 20 years, I'm just gonna say, if it did come back $12 million,
But if you had 130, I don't know how many homes are up there, 130?
Roughly somewhere in there.
that's roughly 130.
Yeah,
Do you divide 12 million from 130?
Plus interest, yeah.
I believe if you taxed me that much, I'd come visit you.
yeah, we know.
But
you
you'd have
would
good
not.
water. Is it? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it could be like in the $5,000-6,000 a year, maybe.
How much?
5 or 6, maybe.
A year.
Just for them people up there?
For those taxes to pay for the water system. Because the way it would work, it'd be a special fund. That money would then be pledged toward the note and pay the note. But once it's paid off, then they would stop. But
I wouldn't live long enough to see it paid off. But that's something that you'd have to ask them people up there if they're willing to do.
and the other thing that they're concerned about, and I think rightfully so, is, what does this do to the value of their homes? When their homes are assessed, you're looking at the structure, but you're not knowing like, okay, well, you're gonna move in here and you're gonna have a problem, So Yeah, there are a lot of considerations here.
It is.
And health and safety are two big ones. So do we want to try at least to get a better estimate? Would that be something that you guys could support? Get a better estimate from Blacksburg, or?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful, but not the final solution.
No.
But the Department of, what is it, the Office of Drinking Water, they don't have any grants for studies and?
Not till,
Oh,
till
they
next
do,
year.
but they have them in the springtime?
the
Yeah,
application process is closed for the year.
okay.
And so when you do an application and you're putting down all the things, the justification for your grant, does it help to have some folks involved at the state level that you know, or
Certainly wouldn't hurt, I wouldn't think.
or even the federal level that you know,
I don't think it would hurt.
to write letters of support, or, okay. And when you say it opens in the spring, when would that be? Like, you mean like March or
April, I think it's April, May.
April,
I think
May?
I can check on that for you,
Okay.
get you an exact date, but I think that's what it is, somewhere in that area.
Okay,
Snow, when we talked about this, it's been 3 or 4 months ago.
yeah,
but
because I mean, I really feel like, I want to represent my folks in District F that have come to us with this problem, and it's a serious problem, and I want to do the best I can for them, but I know that I have to have everyone else's support to do it. And so if it's a baby step, trying to find an estimate, I mean, I'm okay. I mean, it only took 22 and a half years to build an animal shelter, so, let's do a baby step. And then the next one be like, okay, can we get some grant money for, I mean, that's, if that's all we can do, I say let's do it.
Okay.
Is that okay with, well, it's only four of us here. Okay. Okay, so we'll see how that goes.
All right, so we'll check with Blacksburg Consultant, see what they'll charge.
Yeah.
Thank y'all.
And Todd, I do have a question to ask you, because you're our fire expert on,
The what?
the fire expert.
Oh.
Like you're talking about, like if there was a fire up there and you had to, take tanker trucks and all that or whatever.
Yeah.
Do we need to do something like you're suggesting about the fire hydrants or what? I mean, do we need to do anything about that? Anything else that we're not doing for fire?
Not that I would know of. I mean,
Okay.
if they have a big one, they're gonna call in tankers.
Okay.
But, and you know me, when we go through subdivisions thing here, my first question is, how many fire hydrants do you have? I'm a firm believer in fire hydrants.
Yeah, okay. All righty. Well, thank you guys for hearing our folks out there out and me out. And I guess I'm passionate about this because I rarely get this into something unless I am, and I am. So I'm going to keep bringing it up. Keep bringing it up. So, okay.
All righty, moving to number 6, financial report.
As I said,
Each one of them's got one, ain't they?
You got one.
stated earlier, operating cash is $3,191,027. Capital improvements, $714,078. Customer deposits, $102,120 for a total of $4,007,225.
Okay. Thank you all for coming.
Does anybody have any questions on that? Director's report.
Okay.
One thing I have is give you guys a little update on the jointer project. All of the mainline pipe is in at Reiner. We are currently feeding water to the golf course as of Thursday, Friday, last week, to the golf course, in Reiner. They are already on the new water system. We're still waiting on AEP to put some power to a control valve and some components to come in for the rest of the Reiner system, but we did switch them over to the new water this afternoon. So we're gonna give it a trial run and see how that goes, and we still have the option to go back to the well if we need to go back. But I hope we don't. But, I mean, I would rather stay where we're on, what we're on, and, as long as we don't have any problems, I think we can. So, and there's still a little bit more work to do. There's some, pipe work to do at the tanks to get the, water into the tanks at Reiner. Filling the tanks a little differently than what's being done right now. And that's some of the components we're waiting on. It's 4 or 5 week lead time on some of that. And we're currently adding some connections that were part of the water project, added on throughout the project. So we're currently working on those. And all the other systems that we had before, the well systems that we took over, twin boulders and those, and the mud pike in the Plum Creek side of that joinder project, phase 1 and 2, is complete. So we're just waiting to button up Reiner and move on to something else.
Another question on, did we ever finish the upgrade from a 2-inch line to an 8-inch line over there on,
Well,
yeah,
that's coming up.
okay.
That's part of the stuff that we're getting. That should hit the street, I'm hoping, in about another 2 weeks, 3. So
Okay.
hopefully we'll get that project going too. That's only like 1,700 feet, so I don't really think that one's gonna take a whole lot to.
And when you say it's gonna get going, we're gonna put bids out?
That's when it
Okay.
goes out to bid, and then it's gotta get those back and then review and all that. So we're still looking at a few months getting started, but it'll start this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Maybe this year. They may, it depend on how close it gets to December.
You said
Maybe when they get close to December, they may put it off and not start working till spring, but that's left up, usually the contractor says, well, we can go on and do it, but.
Tell him, Steve, he done said it. We all heard it.
Oh, just a-
Well, it started right now. It may not be finished until next year. So. Don't y'all work today?
Like they had to do with my park out there.
Yeah.
All right,
That's all I have.
okay. Order report.
The only thing I had was that feedback from the meeting that we had with the Long Shop McCoy folks about, their desire to also have public water.
Remember Steve?
They have the mighty New River right there. They can't, their wells are
The Water
bad too?
Authority says we can't.
Yeah, it seems like every great idea has a roadblock, but, no, I don't have any report.
Secretary Beebe.
Well, I thank everybody for their comments and coming together to at least have a baby step. But I will tell you that, there's been a lot of education sort of involved in this because, people, and this is nothing against Reiner, but there are some expensive homes in Reiner that are on PSA water. And so Fresh Mountain's like, well, wait a minute. How did that happen? And I think Angie did a good job in explaining that because that's exactly how it happened. Because at the time, the PSA was being a developer along with, and using the schools as the instrument to get the water out there. So thank you, Angie, for bringing that up. I sort of explained that a little bit ahead of time to some of the folks out there today. So, perception is everything. And so you have individuals that are living in that district and they're paying their taxes. They have expensive homes. And I've gone over and over, the PSA is different than the county, and so that we have an understanding there. But I can see their frustration. And this isn't new. this has been going on for years. And to be perfectly honest, you know, the people that buy homes, unless you're like us, for some reason, you're really into water and sewer and, you know, knowing where internet is, you buy this nice home, you're like, oh, this is so great. The view's great. Oh, the well went dry. Oh, our clothes aren't clean. Oh, we don't have internet service. And a lot of times, unfortunately, when they're buying a home, the realtors don't say anything about that. So you can see their frustration. So I just want to represent that back, yeah.
Is that all you got?
It's not all I got, but I'll be quiet.
Well, on that statement about $1 million house in Reiner, mine's not one of them.
No, Todd's in the other district, as he always lets us know.
I'm in the poor section.
Yeah, in the poor section.
I don't have no report, but I would like to thank Chuck and the PSA staff. They're really doing good work, getting everybody all the water they can, and they're doing everything they can. They're working on the Reiner project and the Elliston project with the tank. You got an update on that?
It's in the planning stages, waiting on the cost to come back for the building, for the controls. And then we'll have an estimate to pass on to get that done.
We do have good staff there. They I know they get called out during the night. People really depend on them. And for that, I want to tell you how much I appreciate each and every one of you.
So,
You too.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Who is going to send a letter to Blacksburg asking about the estimate? Or is a letter going to go, or staff is going to talk to them, or what's going to happen?
I think we can just talk to Mark
Chuck.
Verneel.
Yep, I can do that. I can reach out
he
to
can
him.
just talk.
And I think all we have to do is just, say, do you mind if we
Yeah.
ask CHA for an estimate on this instead of, getting them
Just to
do
work
it?
together to make sure we're
Exactly.
asking for the right
Yeah, I don't
things,
want to
think.
step on nobody. I don't want to step
Right.
around anybody or step on nobody's toes.
But, we do, well, I do understand, I hope everybody else does too. Blacksburg's not being mean, but they gotta protect their own people.
Right.
I mean,
We
they
would
do-
do the
that's-
same
That's their
thing.
job. We would
Yeah.
do the
We
same
would.
thing,
We
that's
would
right.
do the same thing.
That's right, yeah. Blacksburg's doing what they need to do, and I appreciate that.
And I appreciate the fact they were open to looking at it,
Yeah.
because that really shows, cooperation and communication between the town and the county.
Yeah, because if you read that, I guess you called the article or something, about giving water to out-of-town residents.
Because that was done in the past. Marty was here and Angie was here actually when that was done, I think with the Ellenbogen project and,
Yep.
that kind of thing. So it had been done before. And then I had to really, really beg for the town to be the backup for the Prices Fork water. I had to really beg for it. I spent a lot of time over there and finally Roger Hedgepash agreed that he would get the council to agree to that. And all that sort of happened at the same time. So,
Well, and I think people realize we're all trying to do the best we can. But when you have a limited resource, as PSA does,
Yeah.
you're just locked up.
Yeah.
But
I
that'd
want
be-
to touch a minute on what you said a while ago about staff and these projects. It's a team effort. It started with you guys. I mean, you guys were the ones who said, okay, let's pursue this project. And then it goes down to the engineers and it goes down to the designers, the contractors, people like Korea, make sure the bills are paid and get the contractor their money, because if the contractor don't get their money, they're not going to work. I mean, what I'm saying is everybody is involved. It's not just one person or two people. And now the crew's involved in getting some of these connections done to the system that was part of the project. It's a team effort, and I'm just tickled to have them all. So
We got good staff, and I think we got a good board to work together.
I think we do. I know we do. We wouldn't have got this far if we hadn't.
All right. Anybody have anything else?
I think we're okay.
Y'all want to stay here a little bit longer? What, Steve? Meeting adjourned.
Y'all like to smack the gavel. Yeah, I did it one time. Got in trouble. Because I need to read the Constitution.
The doctor told her.
Probably will. Probably will. No, I got all my stuff there to do it. I just, my neighbor out the road. Any beats? I said, no, I didn't plant none. I said, I've never fooled with them. I love them. I love them. No, I love them. Do it to them. I know.